students are familiar with your background, and afterwards you'll have 50 minutes to 1 hour to deliver your expert insights. After which, if you open yourself to a quick Q&A session, I'm sure that a lot of our students will drop their observations and questions in the chat.
Sure, Adam. Sounds good to me. So you wanted to start the session right away or wait for some more time for the other players to join?
I believe the others will be clicking on the link shortly. In the meantime, let me give your introduction to the ones already here, sir.
Go ahead, Adam. Yeah.
Mr. Rao Vudhari is an information technology professional with more than 2 decades of experience in IT infrastructure, information security, and cloud operations design and delivery, architecting efficient, effective, and scalable global operations for public, private, or hybrid clouds, providing support for enterprise in a 24/7 manner, follow the sun delivery model. Improving delivery efficiency by breaking traditional team silos and creating lean cloud ops while integrating offshore or right-shoring into existing delivery models. Mr. Rao Vudhari is part of the Cloud 4C services and the Indian School of Business. In the former, he is Senior Vice President, whereas with the background, with the latter, he completed the Global CIO program and information technology. Mr. Rao previously also worked for Kalidus Cloud as a senior director, and he was also the IT manager for global service delivery for the company BWin. Moreover, Mr. Rao Vudhari's specialties include cloud ops, SaaS industrialization, DevOps, transformation, M&A, integration and management, creating and managing virtual and global teams, negotiations, enterprise architecture, client retention, business development, architecture resilience, and many, many more cybersecurity adjacent subfields. With that, sir, I would like to yield the floor to you. We are really excited for your expert insights on cloud security and really looking forward to your presentation.
Thank you, Adam. Thank you very much for the lovely introduction that you have given me. Okay, so let me share my presentation. Are you able to see the screen?
Yes, sir, perfectly.
Excellent, that's great. So, hi all. Hi everyone. I hope my audio is clear and you're able to see me as well on the video. So today I'm going to talk about cybersecurity. But before we get on to more depth in terms of what is cybersecurity, what is the importance, just wanted to tell you some background why this cybersecurity plays a very vital role in our day-to-day life, across. This is primarily because of the digital transformation that has been happening. You name any country, any business vertical, the horizontal, vertical, any sort of an automation industries or mobile, mechanical, IT related, the digital transformation is going on in a different pace. So once the digital transformation is in the place, meaning the data, the security is outside, right? So once the data is out of our hands, then the security plays a very vital role. That's where this security comes into the picture. So today the agenda that I'm going to talk about is about enabling the transformation, right? Because the cybersecurity plays a very vital role, as I mentioned, and the digital transformation is coming. And within the digital transformation, cybersecurity comes in. And then we're going to touch base about the cyber crimes, what's happening over this particular cyber crimes, in terms of how much is the cost, what are the different mechanisms, methodologies that we have. And then we're going to touch base about the cloud computing and the cybersecurity as well. And in the last, we're going to have some sort of a discussion on the questions and answers. And obviously, you can ask me more queries as well. So moving forward, what is digital transformation? So this digital transformation demonstrates the MSFTs, the underlying importance of cybersecurity, the cybersecurity policy for digital transformations as well. Right? So if you look at this particular role, what is happening? So if you start looking at it in the era one, it was all about the IT craftsmanship. What I mean by that, it's about the focus on the technology. It's like, sporadic automation, more of an innovation related aspects, more of, assembling part of it. That was the concept on era one. But slowly when the evaluation happened through the innovation, it came on to the industrialization. This is part of the era two. So what happened over here? More of the process focused happened from the technology focus, and the services, solutions, the efficiency and the effectiveness in this particular industrialization was more focused. And today where we are on the era three. This is more of from the industrialization phase to the digital transformation. The moment we get onto the digital transformation, here the business model focus is completely changed. The more focus is about the business models, the different business models. Right, as we all know, cloud, different ways of cloud, which I'm going to talk about in the next subsequent sessions, more of the digital transformations. Yeah. So here the innovations comes into the different types of services, where we are going to talk about the microservices as well, right? Breaking the bigger one into smaller chunks and see how the resolution took place. So era one, more of an IT craftsmanship. Era two, more of industrializations. And then the transformation happens onto the digital transformation. That's in the era three, which is on today. It's not just that has been changed, but every single industry will be digitally remastered going forward as well. The era technology used in 70s and 80s was once where automation was sporadic and difficult. Right. The innovation that came about as a result of technology did so in fits and starts. And the world has changed dramatically since then. So if you look at, let me take an example so that you guys can understand a bit more depth. So the digital transformation, to make that happen, the cloud has become more central, right? So it calls a cloud central digital transformation. And if you go to any industry, that's happening, any government sort of a thing, that's also happening. So in terms of this journey towards, what was the challenge and what was the strategy? So let me bring an example about the aircraft industry. We all know, right? We get onto the plane. And if you want to do a manual check of each and every component of the flight, right, it takes a lot of time. Right. So the strategy was, how do we make sure that.
Sir, pardon. So I think you have to just use the full screen for the slide, sir. We can see your whole screen with the timer and all that.
Oh, okay. Oh, 1 second. Is it clear now?
No, we are able to see this screen, sir. I don't with the next slide and all this. I connected to a projector.
Okay, hold on. Yes. Is that clear now?
Yeah, now it's good.
Okay, perfect. Thanks for that. Yeah.
Perfect, sir.
Excellent.
Thank
Great.
you.
Yeah. So if you look at this particular example of the aircraft I was talking about, right? How do I improve the efficiency of the aircraft, right? The availability. How do I, make more of manual process out and get in more optimized methodology? How is it possible? So if you go into a flight, you see this, the flight hostess or, the air hostess, what do? They get in a small machine and connect to one of the ring and then get all the testing done. right? So what is it doing it? It is collecting all the information of the mechanical devices, putting onto the central, and that is getting transferred onto the cloud, right? Where the complete lighthouse guys who go to sit down there, the air traffic controller checks the entire particular flight status, right? And also they built some sort of an intelligent sort of a thing, which is really helping them, right? To reduce the flight disruptions, to understand this particular health status of the aircraft, right? And it also saves a lot of efforts that will lead into the manual thing. So that's the the digital transformation that's happening. And imagine you have an airport with thousands of flights or hundreds of flights, right? How hard it would be for a person to do everything on a manual basis. But when this particular strategy comes in, you see the end results. The other example that I'm going to quote about is, you take about the citizens, right? The personal identification number of an individual and mapping that particular individual to the property or a house. How do we do this? Right. So this is the complete digital transformation and collecting all these things, putting onto the cloud, and the information is there over there. So the cybersecurity comes into the picture. So how does cybersecurity enable digital transformation? So because what is happening here is each and every component gets connected. The moment the data is out, the information is out and gets connected between different networks, the more the risk, right? So if you look at the cost of cyber attacks to companies each year is approximately around 400 billion. And the estimated cost in the economic value for cybercrime is around 3 trillion, right? 140 plus median number of days. Data records compromised, the top 8 breaches. I'm going to touch base about these breaches as well. In 2015 data was around 160 million, right? And victims of the cybercrime per year was around 556 million. And 71% of the companies admit that they fell victim to successful cyber attack. Right. So the reason why I'm telling about these numbers is to emphasize more upon the importance of the cyber security and how it has evolved. It has evolved because of the digital transformation. And in the journey of digital transformation, cyber security plays a very vital role. So that's the message that I want to give you guys before even I get into more of the concepts on the cloud security. So cybersecurity is something like bringing a bigger wall. So this particular picture, if you look at it, a user logs in right into any laptop. Then the malware is one thing, data encryption is one thing, right? Multi-factor authentication is one thing, two-factor authentication is one thing. There are different types of attacks happens on the external perimeter network or the external facing particular applications, yeah, or the public IPs. A lot of denial of service happens, right? Systems updates. When you do some sort of a patches, there will be a lot of vulnerabilities as well. A lot of spamming related things happen. A lot of phishing things come to the picture, right? The enterprise security is not that great. Maybe some sort of a weakness in that. The vulnerabilities that are there in that entire systems are not properly addressed in the time. So this fits a lot of things, and a lot of intelligence also needed for these particular aspects. And if you look at it, as I said, 1 billion Windows devices gets updated every month. 300 billion user authentication happens every month. 200 billion email analysis for spam and malware. This is a unique intelligence that some of the statistics that I could gather. And what is the government role in cyberspace? So if you look at it, there is a data exposed to the external world, right? The threat actor tries to act it. We have certain sort of a cyber defense mechanism or a capabilities within this who try to protect, right, their perimeter network or that internal data or the critical information so that the threat actor does not come into the picture. So it's a protector, it's a user, it's a creator and an exploiter, right? So rising international security, because a lot of companies exchange their particular data information within the region, within the state, within the country, across the globe. And this leads into a lot of, the regulatory pressure as well. So a lot of innovation that comes in, but also it comes into the risk. So if you look at it, 71 plus countries with cybersecurity strategies, they have countries with defensive capabilities they got, offensive capabilities also they got. A lot of legislation comes into the picture. Land of the law also come to the picture when it wanted to implement the cybersecurity space. And these are the global policy deployments that happened in the last year, 2021. So you can see the underneath down the countries like Americas, APAC, Europe, MEA, right? So cyber crime, cyber security, encryption, how's the Internet of Things happening? What is the national strategy? Surveillance, education area, cloud computing, critical infrastructure. So you can see this particular graph and you get some sort of an idea on it. The critical infrastructure laws, as I said, the land of the law, every country comes with their particular sort of a strategy so that their data is protected. So in the Americas, if you look at, Bermuda, Canada, EMEA, Denmark, Germany, Asia, so many countries, they're coming up with different things. Why? Because they want to manage their security risk in the critical infrastructure per se government or probably any sort of organizations guidelines. And of course, the China is also coming up with China cybersecurity law. Every country comes with their certain things. For example, in Saudi, if you look at it, it comes with an NCA compliance. Like a lot of compliances like GDPR. In terms of the financial transaction, like PCI related compliances. Many things come into the picture. So the policies that play as a security baselines, whether it is a government systems or it could be an enterprise systems or it could be a private entity firm. Data security and access, one of the key concept, right? And incident reporting and the information sharing. So here the three components of the security comes and plays into the very vital role: confidentiality, integrity, and availability. And in case of anything that has happened, how the incident is being reported, how the information is being classified, the data classification that we talk about, and security certifications that what we go ahead and comply with, right? So plan, do, check, act cycle, and operational and security controls that are like, specific to certain government organizations, specific to certain enterprise organizations, specific to that particular land of the law as well. So these are the security baselines, on which the policy topics play a very vital role. So if you look at this here, government systems, critical information systems, enterprise, individual that I just spoke about. And this is the supply chain lifecycle assurance story. This particular slides depicts about the innovation, engagement, partnership, education, and transparency. So you see the entire thing, security standards, contracting, it even covers the supplier continuity, installations, the movement of the data, getting these particular shipments between the data centers, and automated software checks, data center operations, the entire supply chain security requirements update process. So this is the supply chain lifecycle assurance story. That are the other things, when it comes to the cybercrime legislation. Look at this. It's very interesting. This cybercrime policies in the year 2021 in Europe. If you look at it, MENA, APAC. So in the Middle East region, the cybercrime policies they put it very stringently as a percentage of total cybersecurity policies. Yeah. So they're having that lack of harmonization, difficulty for law enforcement. That was the challenges due to which these countries came up with a lot of cybercrime policies. Because they have to improve the MALT process. They have to align with the internationally recognized conventions. So cybercrime approaches to cybercrime laws. Just want to touch base about it here. So the legal frameworks are very essential to fighting the cybercrime. One is the protecting the citizens, protecting their particular personal identification number. Second is enforcement of the law in terms of investigation, protecting individual privacy. And of course, the collaboration between countries, right? The cybercrime and electronic device evidences and setting the standards of using the ICT devices and the minimum protection areas in such as, data handling, data at rest, data at motion, data in transition, and of course, providing the fair and effective justice procedures for this particular cybercrime related or probably criminal things that is happening on the data theft related activities. So the best practice principles that have been followed, investigate powers, the outcome focused definitions, privacy protections, cooperation between the private sector, jurisdictions, and international cooperations. These are the left side that you see here that are the best practice principles. I just gave one line to each so that you get more information about it. So the first one is create necessary investigative powers, right? So remote access search, preservation order, disclosure of traffic, order of computer. So this gives a complete, in a high level view for you guys to understand the application, the legal actions of the actions and other aspects. And then the define crimes in an outcome focused way, the acts, personal financial gain, content related acts, for example, if you take it the financial gain or harm, there the identity theft has been there, the spam is there, copyright of the trademark abuses that happens, content related, child pornography, a lot of things. Privacy policy, here the effective cybercrime investigations like, national or regional, cross-border or international. So all these things come to the picture in the privacy policy. And then, of course, the enabling the cooperations with the private sector is one of the key element as well over here. And addressing all these jurisdiction issues, some of the things that I've told about, in the year 2000, Lauberg virus, which was originated in Philippines, right? And it was spread through I love you in subject order, overridden files. So like, approximately 10 billion in economical damage it has been caused. And then build cooperation globally between the things like, SCU memberships, African Union conventions, cybercrime laws place, the majority of this one. So if you can see the color codes on the left, and that has been pictorial in the entire map. And of course, call to action in the cyber law, how it develops, prevents, and of course, it maintains the equally enforcement and also balanced rules, information sharing facilitations, and the best practice and emergency issues, adoptions laws. So this talks about the cybercrime laws and other aspects, right? So with this, now I'll move on to the topic of fundamentals of the cloud. So basically, if you look at it, what is cloud, right? So an email, for example, Google Mail, most of the people use it. It's on a cloud, blogs and tweets, e-commerce, videos, photos, all these things. So the cloud computing can be defined as per the ISO is like, it's a paradigm of enabling network access to a scalable and elastic pool of shareable physical or virtual resources and a self-provisioning and administering on demand. This particular sentence in the last with self-service provisioning and administration on demand. This is a very key sentence over here, which I'm going to explain in the next subsequent slides. This talk about the different cloud methodologies, technologies, and the stacks. So what are the different characteristics of a cloud computing? So the network access to the cloud services is one of the thing. And you pay only to the services what you need and measure it. And of course, you take some sort of an service and you put a multi-tenancy, meaning in the same infrastructure layer, you can have different customer hosted, right? And of course, the on-demand self-service and scalable resource. So if you go on an Amazon or an AWS or an Azure, you want to create a VM, you go there, you just create, that's on-demand self-service. You don't need any sort of a thing. You go there, you pay it, you select what is the memory you need, what is the CPU you need, how many NICs you need, what IP addresses. This gives a lot of these are the characteristics. This gives a lot of, what do you call the power to the user itself. And of course, the connectivity between the data centers, like, primary, DC, NDR, a lot of concepts. So this particular cloud is right away business clouds, government clouds, enterprise cloud, like private cloud, public cloud, hybrid cloud, community cloud. They're different type of things. So what is the benefit that we get? The productivity gets increased, the lower the cost, and of course the new services, something like a microservices. Yeah. So in case if one service goes, the other service is self-protected. And this all we will cover in the cybersecurity slide in the next subsequent things. So if you look at this particular deployments and the services models on the cloud, one is the infrastructure as a service, one is the PaaS model, the other is the software as a service model, right? And these particular models again goes into a different deployment models, right? You can deploy infrastructure service in a private cloud. You can deploy the same thing on a hybrid cloud, which is a mix of private and public, and you can deploy the same thing in a public as well. Yeah, wherein which in the public, the multi-tenant environments between the cloud provider owns and that makes an availability. I'll show you one of the metrics as well, where clearly whose responsibility where and why that is being derived like that. So what is actually happening in infrastructure as a service? Yeah. So here customer pays for a time and a space on a server. So the compute, storage, network. This is being given by the cloud, and there's a virtualization fabric that acts on it. It's like an orchestration layer, right? So this is infrastructure as a service, where the infrastructure is being provided as a service to the end user. Examples would be Express Route, Azure Stack. I just took Azure, so you get the same thing in GCP as well, and also the AWS. Yeah, the other aspect is a platform as a service. This is like a meter. This is responsible for individual virtual machines and managing the basic resources. To the right side, if you look at it here, this is the platform as a service. This is the operations model. And on top of it, security and management is there. The underneath layer is infrastructure service. So here the Azure App Services, IoT device analytics, all these things fall into the PaaS category. And the other model is about the software as a service. If you look at over here, yes, this is a virtualization fabric, infrastructure service, platform as a service, and then software as a service. Right. So the cloud service handles most of the work to build and deliver a service. Like, for example, Google applications. You can take about the WhatsApp or probably Office 365. You go there, you just have a login ID password and you start exchanging the mails. But when it's the underneath layer is completely taken care by the cloud provider. So these are the cloud service models. Here, if you look at it, infrastructure service, it's a basic compute you get, network and storage. These are the three things that you get part of this particular model infrastructure service. And this is on demand and the various things, example, VMware Cloud, Amazon EC2, all these things. And when it comes to the platform as a service, it's an on-demand application hosting environment, right? And then as a software as a service, it's about application. So one model is about the application hosting, one model is about the service hosting, the other model is about the infrastructure hosting. So these are the various combinations of the service models. So now when we go to the deployment models, we have private, we have hybrid, we have public. So we can also have all mix. Private and public mix is nothing but called as an hybrid. So this gives a choice to the end user how to deploy a cloud. Right. So one is the on-prem, which is nothing but a private cloud we talk about. And then there are a lot of commercially public clouds worldwide, right? Secure public cloud we call as, which has got a multi-redundancy, resiliency sort of a thing, which is really built in. And there are certain things called as a regional cloud as well for that particular region. And these days we see a lot many country clouds are also coming up. This particular cloud is only specific to that particular countries. Countries with large computing needs and regional leaderships, basically they go for the country cloud sort of an aspect. And now let's explore some of the technology and security of this cloud computing. Right. So there are three ways service models, as we discussed, as, PaaS, and SaaS. Right. So PaaS, it provides metered pay as you go. As customer pays for the particular computing services that he takes. Software as a service oriented towards the end user experience. Right. So it's already remotely based software. This is the table matrix that I'm talking about. This is very interesting slide. So this particular slide, if you look at it, this is a responsibility, right? And these are the different services. So if you look at the data classification and accountability on any of the model that you take, on-prem, as, PaaS, and SaaS, right? This responsibility lies with the cloud customer itself. So the customer owns the entire responsibility. If you go about the physical security here, right? If it is an on-prem, which is on the customer side, it's about the cloud customer itself. He takes the complete responsibility. But if the same customer taking the as infrastructure as a service, then the physical security lies with the cloud provider. Yeah, so the end user or the cloud customer does not need to worry about any of the physical security when he goes with infrastructure service or PaaS as a service or SaaS as a service. Similarly, if you look at the left side, I've given all the responsibilities in terms of identity access management, right? Network controls, host infrastructure. It does not matter to the end user what host, but if it is on-prem, everything is the responsibility of the cloud customer. And when it goes to as PaaS, SaaS, then there is a permutation and combination of the responsibilities between the cloud provider and a cloud customer. So these are the security related responsibilities on the different cloud models. So with the cloud, it also offers a lot of benefits. It also has a lot of risks, right, for the policymakers. So technology underpins the architecture. Architecture supports the operations. So that's a message that I would like to give over here. And if you look at the technology, the broadband that's enables SaaS, container managers enables the PaaS, hypervisor software defined networks data centers. Yeah, so this is the pyramid that I would like to emphasize more about. And the other importance in the cloud is the foundation of the data centers, right? Data center is the primary thing. So again, here, if you look at the bottom layer is all about the data centers. On top of it, it's about the software defined networks. On top of it is the hypervisors, and then the containers, and then the broadband connectivity to connect the entire things. So what are the risk and policy considerations that we need to do in terms of the architecture, in terms of the technology, or when it comes to the operational aspect? So this slide talks about it. I'm not going to talk much because anyway, I'm going to share these slides to you. You can go through it. So this gives you a very clear picture about the policy considerations. Then the software defined networks, right? Earlier, it was all about physical devices, networks, routers, switches, firewalls. Right away, everything is all about software defined networks, right? That's called as an SDN. And these days, it is getting more and more. So if you look at this picture, this was the traditional network, right? So we used to have a switch, and the switch used to have a control panel and a data planner. But whenever you are looking over here, it's only this particular thing, the programmable switch. You can control everything to a software programming thing, and it has got a controller machine as well. So you have all these devices included here, and you have a centralized management software. You can use it on somewhere and then start managing all these things as well. Here also the traditional network also you have it, but the ease of maintenance is, the operational related aspects is more easily can be done over here in this particular table. Then the architecture behind the curtain. So when it is network DLA to network quantum, right? Early cloud data centers focuses more on the traffic between one DC to the other DC, right? The latest data centers emphasize more on traffic between the servers, right? So this is one of the key important thing that you need to do. Earlier, it was the end user to the server. But in the latest data centers, it's all about servers to the user, right? And here, if you look at it, the SDN, what will it give us more things? Like, it is very fast, flexible, right? And also it is very easy to modify and expand the data centers. And sophisticated security controls across all layers on the network. That's the flexibility we get it. And then hypervisors, basically it is enabling the as. So this is the hypervisors. If you look at it, this is an example that I've taken from the Azure Fabric. So this is the fabric, this is servers, and this is the hypervisors. And this is where your data is there on this particular storage. And this is about the virtualization, right? This is being about isolation within a single server, multi-tenancy, right? This diagram reflects a multi-server sort of a thing with the help of virtualization. And of course, the operations, it helps us in decoupling and elasticity from the architecture of IaaS operations as possible. And then security responsibilities pertaining to this particular model of IaaS. How is that? To the left side, you see the responsibility, the right side, you see a different things. Similarly, the risk and policies. And of course, this is a very important topic. This is about the containers and security across it, right? Primarily used for the PaaS and the microservice hostings. Look at the traditional monolithic software model. If you look at it here, it's a web, it's a business logic and the data. But here, if you look at it, web, business logic and data, right? Let me take a simple example to explain you so that you understand a bit more clear. There is a financial related bank that's happening, right? Earlier, what happens? Thousands of users log into the bank, right, to open their accounts. some of the people might be doing certain transactions, but not 100 people go and do the transaction. The transactions will be done by only a few members. Right. So how do we do that? So this container really helps that one, and it's a self sort of a thing based on the load and everything, right? So the payment gateways is segregated. A container comes and this particular microservice goes as a payment gateway there. And here it's only the normal account opening related. So the security that's there in this particular asset, in case something happens on this particular microservices, which is all about the user interfaces in terms of account opening, right, gets compromised, it has got no impact to the payment gateway. That's the beauty of this, right? So basically it is isolating software from the software. And this, the isolation of containers as well. If one container compromised, other container is not is intact basically. So this is some of the examples here down I quoted. And there's one more concept called serverless computing as well here. And the past security responsibilities. So this is the second item that I've already talked about, and these are the roles and responsibilities. And of course, the technology, architecture, and operations. These are the three models again here, pillars. And then the enabling the SaaS, broadband applications, basically the delivering the content and other aspects. And of course, here the architecture standard protocols. These standardizations basically bring the lower cost of service deployments. And the other, as we all know, DevOps, right? Deployment, testing, integration, deployment. So it all comes about development and the operations and bringing everything together. Like the developer himself develops, he can also do the testing, he can also do the integration, and of course that he can also deploy or roll, right, into a single interaction process. And what are the security responsibilities in terms of the SaaS model? Yeah. So this slide talks about the same technology, architecture, operation specific to this particular model. So with this, talks about the different models of the cloud security. We spoke about the cyber crimes. We spoke about the digital transformation. We spoke about how important is the cyber security, right? Having said this, I would also like to talk about what we do in terms of cyber security. So in terms of the data security, I work in a company called Cloud4C, right? And we have a very different portfolio, a standard security portfolio. What we try to do, we do offer a service called as a data security thing, right? Which covers about the data masking. It talks about the HSM and KMS. These are nothing but the key management system like public key, private key, bring your own key, the file integrity sort of a thing, identity and access management. Here it talks about the privilege access management, multi-factor authentication or a two-factor authentication, and also the RBAC related things. And the endpoint security is all about, anti-phishing, EDR, DLP things, Intune, the endpoint management, application security. This more talks about the application related things, emphasizing on the DDoS protections, API securities, PKI certifications. And when it comes to the network sort of a thing, again, the internal, the core, the perimeter, right? So the perimeter things come over the DDoS protection. So basically about the zero trust protection to the micro segmentations, and then the SIRT. It's about, the response time, the operation model of 24/7, how this particular, security incident event management is being done, analysis, threat intelligence, how it is being done, how it is the notification is done, all this type of things. And SOAR and AI-based automation. Alert comes in, it goes into an orchestration, it redirects. If it is a positive alert, then automatically a bot kicks in, and then that particular task is created and done and closed. Right. So integrated cloud security, global cyber defense, and cyber security assurance. These are the various portfolios. And defense in depth. If you look at it here, this is the data that has to be very secured, right? So if you look at the right side, it's about the encryption and the integrity. On top of it, it's all about the application and the coding, which comes into the secure code. And on top of it, it goes to the physical thing. So it's a firmware, it could be patch management, it could be the human intervention into top of it. And then connecting these servers into the different other servers, storages, it all talks about the network security. And then it gets into the perimeter network, perimeter security when it comes into the interconnecting of one thing to the other one. And of course, who is accessing what? That comes to the identity. That's nothing but the access management. And here, if you look at it, how do we prevent this? how do we prevent the perimeter and the network from the security angle perspective? How do we prevent and detect, right? Whether it is an application vulnerability or whether it is a host security related threat, and how do we detect any vulnerabilities in terms of any integrity related issues or a data theft, something like that. And of course, if you look at it here, I just took an example of Microsoft end-to-end security capabilities that what we have on Azure. So these are the various things that are available on the cloud, and more of which talks about the security aspects, same components like identity access management, threat protection, unified management, security management, all these aspects. And this is an example about one of the cloud service provider, AWS, which you all know. And this is a well-architected framework here. They also have the same thing: identity management, data guard, inspector, firewall manager, KMS, AWS KMS. This is about the encryption, data at rest, rotate, manage, and then of course the VPC connections, connecting between different on-prem to prem and all these things, subnet, network isolation. So this is a well-architected framework on the AWS that we have. And we, as a Cloud4C, we provide everything as such here. If you look at it as a single pane, single box, one is the professional services in terms of advisory roles and consulting for the deployment, for doing these particular assessments as well, and managing the complete SOC standard, whether it could be host-based, it could be network security, it's completely data security, application security, and MDR, advanced manage, detect, and response teams. And in terms of the compliances, as I said, GXP, HIPAA, DSS, PCI, cloud security appliances, and of some of the worldwide standards as well, we try to follow that, and we try to help the organization to improve their particular security on their cloud hostings and the cloud requirements as well. These are the security assessment approach. So if you look at it, this is a CIS implementation group. This is a benchmark that we take her into the technology controls. So if you look at the basic CIS implementation group, there are 43 controls in it. And you go with the foundational 140, organizational is 171. To the left side, you see these technology controls like SWIFT, all these things, cybersecurity framework, COBIT, NISA, SAMA. And to the right side, validation and recommendation. If you look at it, the assessment reports, baseline recommendations, technologies, the next step, compliance related gaps, all these particular things, validation and recommendations also is done. And these are the various multi-vendor integrated cybersecurity solutions like IBM X-Force, Rapid, IPS, IDS, Barracuda, F5, firewalls, load balancers, Archon, deep securities, CrowdStrike, something like an EDR, vulnerability assessment tools, IBM QRadar, SIEM, monitoring threat and intelligence, behavior monitoring, all these aspects. And this is a security monitoring process. So if you look at the embedded technology, right, this is the prolified incidents, cognitive analysis, advanced orchestration through threat and risk detection, investigation and classification or a qualification, and then the incident response. And then if you look at the bottom, security monitoring happens, and then the incident escalation, security analysis, threat hunting, and response planning. Here, the security delivery framework, if you look at it, innovation, optimization, and maturity. And you see the circular that goes on. So initial kickoff is done, the requirement gathering is done, communication, as is to be project sign-off, PMO, delivery management, design, sign, adoption, delivery checks, monitoring, governance control, knowledge management, feedback. So this is a life cycle of the security delivery framework. So this is all I have to say on this particular sessions, and I'm happy to take any questions. Yeah.
Thank you so much for your expert insight, sir. We really appreciate it. Personally, I barely knew anything before cloud security, about cloud security before your lecture, having a background in the social sciences and more like the macro aspects of cybersecurity. So it's rather satisfying to me to get a more technical overview. And with that, let me get into the questions. First of all, we have a question from Shreyas. And of course, all of you feel free to drop your further questions into the chat box. We have time left from our lecture slot. So first of all, should I ask this question? How is jurisdiction covered in cloud storage and investigations?
Yes, it's a very good question. Basically, as I said, every country comes with their sort of a legislation internally. And I gave an example as well during my talk, right? For example, in Saudi Arabia, if you take about, they got a compliance called NCA. What does it mean? They mean that all the government related customers should be hosted in a government community pod, right? And the private customers should be in a private cloud. And these people should no way be integrated. They should be physically isolated. So that's a requirement. So that's a jurisdiction sort of a thing that comes in page. It's not about only the storage, but it also talks about complete isolation of their infrastructure, right? Example is there is an organization called a government, right? ABC is a government organization. They want to host on the cloud. They have to follow this NCA compliance, right? Whether irrespective of whatever the cloud would be, right? If you're creating a private cloud, then you need to create two clouds, right? One private cloud to host only the government customers. The other is about hosting only the private customers. This is how the jurisdictions have been taken. I just took an example of Saudi, but there are a lot of other countries as well where the land of the law comes into the picture and they got their own law, right? In terms of the data should not be gone out of my country, or probably any payment that is happening or any transaction that is happening should not go out of my payment gateway. For example, in Germany, probably 4 or 5 years back, they had some sort of a payment gateway for the gaming industry, right? They have to go to that particular payment gateway so that they get all the data and the information with them. Yeah. What's the next question, Adam?
Yes, sir. Sorry for the delay. I got muted for a second. So next question is from Kamali. While we talk about security responsibilities of SaaS, what's your take on ransomware as a service, sir?
Yeah, my take actually, yes, there are two ways for this, right? Ransom as a service, some guys do that in the right way. Some guys try to do some sort of a damage to the other way. But most of the cloud service providers, they do not offer, and this is given by only the other side of it. So that would be my take on this. Yeah. So it's not that particular great service that everybody can go and take about it. I think it's morely on the other side of it. So basically, to make sure that this particular ransomware does not impact to on us, my thing would be like, make sure that the infrastructure that what we host on any other cloud, basically they're all updated with the latest patches, right? All the vulnerabilities that has been found out because of the VAPTs or whatsoever that we do, that particular things are mitigated. The controls that are needed to be placed into the system, and make sure that the three elements of this particular security, confidentiality, integrity, availability, are very well within the control.
Thank you very much, sir. Moving on to a question from Danielle. Thank you, sir. What is your take on connection between internal and cloud infrastructure at control plane? What controls to be ensured?
Yeah. So if you look at this particular internal, right? In the internal, you have a number of users and you're not giving access to the outside world. But when it goes into the cloud infrastructure, thing, a lot of control plane is completely open. See, it's simple. You have a login and a password, right? As long as you keep that with you, it's a privacy, right? Once it is there on the cloud, it becomes public, right? So there are a lot of controls need to be placed. So you need to follow the password management tools, or probably get in this two-factor authentication, where in which you log in and key in and then get a code on your mobile device, like an OTP or an email sort of a thing, and key in. So these type of controls, if they are there, that should be good enough. So basically, it's all about identity access management. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Moving on to a question from Muhammad Atif. Very good session, sir. I agree, by the way. Would you recommend any cloud security certification for students who can benefit in the cloud security jobs?
Absolutely. See, there is a course called CISSP. Not only for student, but I would recommend that this particular course will cover. Now, don't go with any specific model or any specific security, but if you do the CISSP, it covers all cloud, no matter what it is. Whether if you go to Azure, AWS, GCP, does not matter. Or the new pursuit, like, there's something called coming up in South Korea called Never Cloud, or something like Tencent, right? But CISSP is what I would recommend to you guys.
Thank you, sir. Now for a question from Varma. Any cert in approved framework for cloud security accepted by regulators like SCBI, RBI, etc. How to ensure the internal controls satisfied for this purpose of certification from IS audit and assurance perspective?
Absolutely. Recently, the CERT, the government of India, has come up with certain sort of regulations in terms of CERT, and there are certain guidelines that are already published. As long as we put our controls over there and get audited by the third party guys, right? That should be good enough. Any certification body that wanted to have this certification in terms of ISO 27001 or probably anything as such, right? Covering the more controls, that would be good enough. And all these regulations like SEBI, RBI that you're talking about, they already published these guidelines and this has been already revised. Right. So any incident that happens in that organization, it has been mandated that this particular incident should be reported within 1 hour, or this type of classification of incident should be reported in a couple of hours or not more than 24 hours, something like that. So you can go to Google and see this. You get all these particular regulatory related recommendation and advices published.
Thank you very much, sir. Now a question from Samir. ISO/IEC 27003. Is it fully robust or do you think it needs to be reevaluated?
From my perspective, the ISO 27001, earlier it used to be called BS 7799. It's very good because it used to have 127 controls. But having said this, at all times, we need to follow the security best practices, right? And security is not somebody else's responsibility. It is each and every individual's responsibility, right? And security starts with you, right? If you share your login ID and password to somebody else, what can the controls can be done here? Right. So what I mean to say is here, in any of the security, human is the biggest threat. So bring the awareness on the security. 27001 talks about a framework, talks about a guidelines, talks about certain different aspects. You go and put certain controls on it. But on top of it, the biggest thing is awareness. Bring the awareness on the security to the user community. Right? Tell them the pros and cons of doing this and take their buy-in. That would be really awesome.
Thank you very much, sir. Dear students, do you have any further questions? If so, we should wait for another half minute or one. Otherwise, sir, thank you so much for being so generous with your time. I personally learned a lot today, and we really hope to see you next year in the cyber school again. Thank you so much for your valuable contribution.
Thank you, Adam, and thank you all the students and members who have joined and for their patience. Right, I hope I added some value to you guys. And if you need any more information, you can connect me on LinkedIn and post your thoughts and comments, and I'll certainly get back to you. Any advice, any input that you need from my side, I'll be more than happy to help you and support you with that. So thank you, guys. Thank you very much. Thanks, Adam. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
The pleasure is all ours, sir.
Great. Thank you.